those who are involved in making it come to life. Join us as we go behind the door.
Good evening, roomies, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Door with the Grey Rooms podcast. I am your host, Brooks Bigley, and with me tonight is Lachlan Watt, the author of Season 4, Episode 13, entitled The Bitter End. How are you this evening, Lachlan?
I'm great. It's actually quite early in the morning here, so good morning to you.
It's amazing that we can all be alive and chatting, at the same time now on this planet and yet be experiencing every conceivable kind of weather and time of day and night. Where exactly are you located?
I'm located in Adelaide, South Australia, and right now I'm sitting in my son's bedroom.
Oh, what an opportune place to be recording.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back. You have been with us for quite some time now throughout the seasons, and you've delivered us just absolute gems in terms of, just out of the ordinary stories that skirt around with horror and with sci-fi, and then you deliver this one to us, and this is just like an opus to like audio blockbuster enormity, the size of this story. I feel like you're just kind of giving us bits and pieces from a much larger episodic story that you must have brewing somewhere, with the Church of, what is it called? The Church of Verity?
That's the one.
My goodness, the depth of the plot here is simply fantastic. With Emma, our main narrator, and she's got her, like, I don't know what you would call them, like mercenaries, but they're clearly on the edge of their seat trying to get through the situation of needing to open up a portal, I guess. This is my interpretation, and we'll get into that. But then being stopped, we don't know who the actual good guys are. We think that they're the good guys, but, they're, like I said, they could be mercenaries. Please, before I just keep rambling, where did you start? What was the impetus for this entire story?
I guess I was trying to come up with something that, it's all third act. It starts, and that's often my goal with the short stories, all right? But, the story starts and everybody already knows each other. The stakes are already established, and it's up to the audience to kind of catch up, which hopefully they're doing by the end of the story when things suddenly take a bit of a turn. And it upends a lot of what we already know. This one's kind of unique in that it wasn't originally written as a room. It was written for something else, and it didn't wind up getting submitted. And when Season 4 submissions opened, I decided to try something different, and rather than write something specifically for the Grey Rooms, I took an older story and retooled it into something that I thought would be suitable for the podcast.
Can you share maybe what the differences were in terms of how it originally was before you ultimately hammered it out, into a room for us?
I think all the plot beats were the same. I think the main difference was obviously, it was converted from a story into a script. And I think just doing that one last pass over the dialogue and the action, I smoothed things out a bit. Things made a bit more sense. I think nothing sort of came from nowhere and caught people by surprise. Yeah, so it was no big changes, just kind of incremental improvements to make it suitable for the podcast.
Now, you have, I wouldn't say that your style of writing is all over the place, because for me, I do feel, these common themes. Like I said, you do kind of seem to think outside of the box in terms of horror and sci-fi. I will always love Fix Me that you did as a bonus. That was from Season 1, with the two women that were, I guess, trapped in this like mobile like crab war machine, trying to fix it with the computer just yelling at them and torturing them to keep it going, but it was basically just running around the world on its own. You gave us that interesting, kind of took place in the current time in season 2. Oh gosh, what was it called? With the woman with the, basically the crazy serial killer that basically, covered her in concrete.
Everyone's a critic.
Yes, thank you. There was a lot of social commentary behind that, so it was definitely different from, the sci-fi of Fix Me. And then we had this beautiful story last season that you gave us. It's still there with the two where they were lovers that had grown up together with this mysterious power to shift between realities, and you hadn't talked for a while, and one of them did something wrong and owed somebody something, and so she roped her lover back in and hey, we got to go into this thing and get this other thing from the other dimension and blah 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 blah. Now you give us this, and this story, it absolutely has become my favorite now. I've listened to it a bazillion times. I've listened to it while reading the script. I've listened to it without the script. So much happening, and like I said, it's we just got a glimpse into this world where these people are fighting, I guess, against this church. And it doesn't have any kind of religious tones to it, at least, maybe not until we get to the end. But how did you come up, aside from whether or not you wrote this for us, just you wrote this story, where did you start to conceive the idea of these people that ultimately were, like you said, it was the third act. They were right at the very end of their mission to get something to further, or to get them to their goal, to fight this church of other bad people, I suppose. Where did that idea come from, and how did you start to flesh that out?
I mean, I guess there's no description in there of what the Church of Verity actually is, or what it does, what its actual goal is. There's an implication that maybe they're involved in the worship of something that has caused this fanatical following to arise. But the listener can kind of fill in the dots on what the church actually is and does, and why these people are so opposed to it. I think I also wanted to imply that maybe they're not the only religious organisation that has appeared in this world that's of a similar nature. That this is a world that's kind of collapsing, and it's due to all these sort of competing factions and interest groups that are warring over sort of what's left. The primary resource in this world is still people. That's what they're trying to steal away from each other. The followers, the capability that they have to throw bodies at a problem, along with the implication that behind it all there is actually some kind of malign, indescribable intelligence that's vastly more powerful than our own.
Yeah, we get this sense that, so as Emma is roundabout kind of describe, because she doesn't just directly tell us the world that they're in, but when she's discussing what they're going through and thinking back, especially when she's talking to the Thing at the end, which we'll get into, she's describing the botched robbery that happened that even led them to this part of the story that we're now privy to hearing. She talks about the company town. So yeah, you get the sense that the world has broken down outside into factions, as you say, and they're just mercenaries for whichever faction. But this Church of Verity having some kind of hold over these artifacts that are mentioned, that somehow is a key to Emma wanting to stop the Church of Verity, and how they describe the Inquisitors of the Church of Verity. It just sounds like Emma and them are on the good side, or at least maybe on the more the side of morals, against this larger behemoth of the Church of Verity, because these gunfights that keep. Oh, but I'm taking that back now, because she also describes when their friend Bobby gets killed that Riley had to kill this innocent woman and child in order to prevent them from being, their faces being known, I guess, because Bobby took off his mask. So yeah, Riley and Hugo are not without sin, I suppose. But it seems like Emma is just kind of caught in this like struggle of wanting to be moral. You know, we don't ultimately know what her goal was other than what ends up happening at the end of the story.
Yeah. I think any crime film has the moment where the protagonist has to make the decision to be a criminal, if you know what I mean. There's maybe they've been dipping their toes in this world. Maybe they've been sort of seeing, what it has to offer them. But then comes the moment where they actually have to do something serious. Maybe it's, maybe they have to hurt somebody. Maybe they have to do something in front of people that are going to be able to recognise them. And they realise that this is a world that's not just something you take from. It's also something that takes from you. And that's what I wanted to communicate with Emma's storyline, that, she's gone into this venture with this eventual goal in mind, and she's taken what she can from the people that she's met. And she probably hasn't properly considered that they're going to take something from her.
Yeah, there's this sense of like not using the people around her, but just being pragmatic about the resources that they have, to get again to their goal. My inference to all of this was that they're trying to stop some portion of the Church of Verity, and not that they are like, the X-Wing in Star Wars where they just need to get that final shot off to blow up the Death Star, but just more like, as she said, as in the end, that she wanted to be that wave that crashed against the shore, that simply kicked the wall down because it just existed, that they just needed to fight. They needed to fight against the Church of Verity, but it never seemed as though they were the bad guys just trying to just, let's just murder all of this church because we're against them. It really seemed like whether or not it was bad guy versus bad guy, still they seemed to have, she seemed to have more on her side, that there was something she wanted to protect, I guess. I guess that's not important, because you would have to write so much more deeper into each character to really reveal all of that. Tell me about this technology, though. I really I wanted to touch on that too. That alien battery that Hugo has buried in his head, it basically like keeps the body alive long after it's dead, can keep it functioning. How did you kind of conceive all of that?
I mean, I guess that was a little clue that this isn't our world. This isn't the same world as the one we live in. This is one where there's kind of, these artifacts and relics exist, and they can be scooped up off the street and popped into someone's head, as the case may be. Whatever has happened that's brought all these new gods to our world has also scattered these relics around, and maybe they're being used for their intended purpose when we pick them up and surgically implant them in someone's head, and maybe they're not. Maybe there's some other purpose to them entirely. I've always been a big fan of the book called Roadside Picnic by the brothers Strugatsky, and it makes the point that it's about alien technology that's been left lying around in an area of our own planet. And they make the point that if you were to take a caveman, I might even have talked about it in this podcast before. If you were to take a caveman into the modern day, within a very short time, you'd have an idea of how things work, and what objects are used for. Whereas the objects that they're finding that have been left by this alien civilization, we've been studying them for years and years and years, and we can't figure out what they're for at all. We can't figure out how they work, what they do. And so it implies that, this not just technology that's far greater than ours, but the purposes that these minds are working towards are ones that we can't yet fathom.
Interesting. Yes. And like when the thing shows up, at the end of the story, we don't need to know what the thing was, because that's not important. It served, as you said, to be kind of like she was almost like the caveman, and she just needed to kind of interact with the thing and figure out that next step. And I guess maybe, encountering the thing was the next step. Can I kind of pick your brain and ask you about that? Like, my first question was like, why did Emma suddenly kill Riley as soon as they had completed drawing, that circle? Why was that part of maybe the ritual that needed to be done, that they needed a body? Like, was he reaching behind his back to get a weapon to kill her?
I think in the original, I think I tried it both ways when I was writing. When I wrote the original story, it was definitely a part of the ritual. And then I changed it to, he had it in for her for whatever reason. And then I decided that it doesn't really need to be spelled out. It can be a bit more ambiguous. I guess with that final draft, I wanted to imply that so much has transpired between these people, and both of them have just, plumbed the depths of their own morality to the extent that they just cannot look the other in the eye. They cannot abide being in the presence of this other person for more than another, for more than is absolutely necessary. So it was always going to end this way between the two of them, so to speak.
Which is interesting because she does describe earlier in the story how Riley kind of held it together for her, especially after the event. We don't hear the event, but we hear her speak of the event where, their group member Bobby was killed, and how she says she almost felt, for lack of a better word, loved by Riley, but not like he actually loved her, but just that she felt the idea of love because of his coldness, but the way that he tried to help keep her together. And then something changes after this gunfight in the bar, and also she was worried about Hugo. She didn't want Hugo to die, even fully knowing that they had installed that battery in him. And then, he had been shot, and then she goes outside to talk to her sister, who is clearly working for the Church of Verity. And then you even mentioned in the, the story how then Hugo came back completely alive again, like almost completely healed because of this alien battery. So she definitely cared in a weird way for both Riley and Hugo. And it seemed that the implication was that Riley was stoic about it, but must have had some kind of care for her. So that, you don't have to explain it, but it definitely adds a cool element to the story. Like, what the hell was he reaching for behind his back when he was ultimately in the middle of that circle? And then her reaction was like, nope, can't, whatever this is, I need to kill him right now.
He's a charismatic leader, but there's also perhaps something missing from his moral complexion. You have to question the sincerity of anything that he says or does for others, because at the end of the day, he's only out to advance the interests of one person, and that being himself.
Sure, yeah, no honor among thieves. It's always, I guess, how it goes. They're each in it for themselves, and then they're just together for the common goal until one of them sees that they can get over on all of the other ones, I suppose. Yeah, he definitely was like a cold-hearted soldier that I could see would make that kind of pragmatic decision. So it could be, the inference could be that she thought that he was going to kill her for some reason, therefore she took his life first. I didn't mean to imply that she was like, oh, fuck this guy, I'm going to kill him now. I didn't think that. I didn't I didn't think you wrote it.
There might have been a bit to that. There might have been a bit of that in there as well.
Well, there you go, from the author's mouth. Really quickly, this is not in any way at all related to your season 3 story, It's Still There, is it? Because they also had like the idea of like drawing with the chalk and then going into a different dimension. Is that just kind of like an idea that you just loosely borrowed from, or is this somehow related in a weird way?
I guess I consider everything I write as being set in some version of the same world. Even if none of those elements pop up in a story, it's like you can, when you have a setting, you can tell any kind of story in that setting, and you only need to kind of, so I guess yes and no is the answer.
Well, that works, because Fix Me could take place even further in the future of this world, from the bitter end, because, that idea of that crab like war machine robot running around, aimlessly because it's coding, it achieved whatever it needed to, but it's a computer, so it's just like, oh, gotta keep going, gotta keep doing it, kind of like V'ger from the first Star Trek movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see how that. So yeah, and I didn't ultimately think per se that you were trying to write a sequel or anything. I just thought, as an author, you all tend to do that.
Yeah, I think it's more that my world building tends to include these elements that I like. Like I don't like writing about cell phones or technology. I don't think I've written a single story which has a cell phone or a computer or anything like that in it. I like people to have to. I like those scenes in sort of 80s, 90s horror movies where the character has to go to the library rather than just Googling the name of the monster that's after them.
Sure. Yeah. I like that. I like that you are of that mind too, because it's too easy nowadays for anything to happen, and you can easily, get the plot moving along. Just like, and then he Googled how to get there, instead of like, but that's part of the journey, is how to find the map to get there.
Yeah. I watched The Empty Man just recently. Have you seen that one?
I have not. It's called The Empty Man. I have not heard
The
of
Empty
that.
Man. It's a fantastic horror movie, but it has a scene in it where he Googles the name of the institute that seems to be taking an interest in him, and there's no results that come up. And to me, those scenes are always so glaring in modern horror. It's like, you have to explain why the character isn't just looking everything up on Google. And so you have the sort of obligatory scene of the character Googling the monster only to get no results.
It's almost like, why even include that? Why not just, I guess because then if you had a character in the 21st century just going to the library to get the info, then the question would be like, why didn't he Google it? So we've made a trap for ourselves.
It's also, it's a bit of a sop to the audience, because the audience are going to be sitting there going, well, why doesn't this guy just Google the monster, and then he'll know exactly what he's dealing with?
Well, let's speak about the monster then, because I want to know what the thing is. So was this the ultimate goal of Emma, was to somehow, and I said portal, but I don't, it could be whatever. It could just be that they drew the runes, and that was what brought the creature, the thing. But he does reference how you're in our world, he says, and she looks around and sees the bar, but admits that the windows are black and she can't see or hear outside of the bar anymore. So somehow they've shifted.
Yeah. So the whole building is just sailing through the void.
Yeah. Was the thing instrumental in her goal towards the end, to become basically this human missile to blow up the church's citadel?
The little speech it gives, I wanted that to carry the implication that anything it does for her, anything it gives her, or any human being for that matter, it's only doing so because it suits its own esoteric purposes. We've strayed into this area where these entities are pursuing these rivalries and vendettas against each other, and they're using humans as pawns. And here comes Emma offering herself willingly, which is enough of an oddity to capture the thing's attention.
Yeah, it was like he was like a genie almost, that he kept saying, like, what do you want? And it didn't, and I knew right away it didn't, the thing wasn't like, you're bothering me, what do you want? It was more like, what is this thing that you seek? Tell me first.
Yeah.
And then he got her to literally go over and think and talk out loud about what it was. Well, she didn't directly say what she wanted, but her emotions just came all out, which was, I guess, the thing's goal. And it seemed like that satisfied him. And then in the very end, he's like, are you sure? And then, boom, she's a human missile flying through the skies, falling towards the Citadel.
And it's also wanted to raise the question of whether or not this was actually what she wanted. Is this what she wanted, or is this what the thing has managed to convince her that she wants because it suits its own purposes?
Exactly, right. And you do know that he, or it, the thing, was not a god. That it was such a fantastic parting speech, I suppose, where she says, that she was able to make this god that was among the heavens. Basically, no one would know who she was, but she would be the mortal to make this god bleed, basically.
Yeah.
And so maybe the thing also, whatever this god was, also wanted it to bleed as well and saw her as an instrument that it could use too.
Yeah.
So it was almost like a common goal together, I guess.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, you can get into the question of whether you're able to truly understand the means and motives of these beings that are, so much, exist on a plane so much higher than our own. And whether she actually did want the things that she actually did want to pursue these goals that the thing had her convinced that she wanted to try. I guess, there's always that paranoid mindset, this idea that you're just being moved around like a piece on a chessboard. You don't know what purpose you're being used for. You don't know what purpose you're being pushed towards. And the things that you think you want, they might not actually be what you want at all.
Oh, yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, like if you don't feel like you're in control of your own life, that's one thing. But then if you feel like someone else is in control of you or your life, which, commonly people do, and then they rail against the government because they feel like the government is controlling them, that just makes it just tenfold worse. Absolutely.
Yeah, and, maybe self-destruction is a valid expression of the powerlessness that these people feel.
Well, and so speaking of self-destruction, what happened with, Emma's sister? Another really amazing scene that just in my brain when it happened. The sister was working for the Church of Verity and was trying to call Emma out of the bar after they had, shot Freddy and shot the Inquisitors that came in, and yet she was tethered to that red wire, which clued Emma in like, shit, run, get the fuck out. And then, what was her name? Faye was the sister's name. And then Faye blew herself up. So she was there to con her sister out to kill herself and her sister. So another act of self-destruction.
Yeah.
These people all reclaiming their powerlessness by self-destruction, as you say.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I wanted to also show how the church accomplishes its goals. It has no regard for the people that serve it. It'll throw as many of them at a problem as it takes to solve that problem. It'll do anything to them. There's no, without getting into the more sort of topical realm of organised religion and what it's meant for humanity. I wanted to show that this is an institution that has no rules when it comes to pursuing its ends.
Sure. I mean, having inquisitors that are going out and just shooting at people, I mean, that clues you in right there. That's who Freddy, I guess, called upon. I don't know if you'd call it a double cross because, there was that point that Freddy said, like, what did he say? That they had kidnapped his nephew or something, that sent his finger to him.
Yeah.
So that was the church using him, as you said, like an instrument, as a pawn.
Yeah.
So definitely, that gives you the clue that this is not a beautiful religious church that has its best foot forward. And, whether or not Emma and Hugo and Riley are wrong or right, they're just fighting back against this bigger and larger power that is controlling everything.
I mean, might not have been the right story to explore this space, but I always do appreciate the notion that a religious institution can be different things to different people. Like there might be people that get, that find attendance at the Church of Verity and whatever its services look like. They might find it to be a very, beautiful and fulfilling part of their lives. They might draw nothing but positivity from it. But at the other end of the scale, you have these people, like when someone calls themselves an inquisitor, that nothing good is going to come of that. And so you have these these figures in black working in the shadows to further the church's ends by any means possible. And maybe the people who, attend every Sunday or Saturday or whenever it might be, maybe they see that aspect of the church and know about it and kind of, ignore it, or maybe they don't know about it at all. Maybe all of that stuff happening in the shadows is a complete mystery to them.
Right. And it's subjective. I mean, what is the context of this world that everyone's living in? If this whole planet is just run down and there's not much sense, again, you talk about these company towns that she visits, or that, like, they try to eke out their lives. What is she's like, draws paintings or pictures or something just to kind of get some money here and there?
Yeah.
Sounds like a pretty bleak world already. Even if the church is up to no good, if people are at their worst and the church is offering, food or water or shelter or anything to that effect, I guess objectively they are being taken care of.
Yeah.
In respect to the context of that world they live in. So of course they're going to find the Church of Verity to be something good to them, and without even really knowing or understanding why it's not that case. Yeah, your story just has a million themes. So powerful. I thought this is for sure my now favorite story. You did a great job, Lachlan.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. How did you feel hearing it? Listening to it, seeing your story yet again, the Grey Room's turning it into something.
Look, every time it feels like the first. It's just such a buzz, especially the voice acting, just incredible. It was really great to hear. Everyone was fantastic, but hearing Peter Lewis voice one of my characters was a real buzz. Michael Rigg and Graham, of course. And Rissa and Nia. Rissa, I'm not sure I'd heard. She's done other stuff for the Grey Rooms, I'm sure.
She's joined us recently.
Yeah,
yes, she's such a powerful, steady voice. I really, really appreciate how she acts.
Yeah, and I've shouted out everyone else, so I've got to shout out David Steele as Hugo as well. So.
Oh yeah, he always plays a really good soldier or mercenary.
Yeah. The guy who just turns up every day.
Exactly. Yeah. Never any kind of weakness or anything in his voice. He's a very we're doing this job. We need to get this done now.
Yeah.
Rely on me. I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's great. He's great at those characters.
Yeah.
And JM hit it out the park with the soundtrack.
Yeah.
It was like this, almost like this, techno rock, but it felt futuristic in line with your story.
Yeah. It had a really pushed everything along. Had a real driving sense behind it. So.
Mm-hmm. And I think Jason must have had just so much fun.
Yeah, I always try to think of things that Jason's in, give him some fun Foley work. I think one of the bits of direction in the script, Riley gurgles wetly as his throat is laid open. We hear Riley die. It's messy and takes longer than it should. That was all for Jason. I knew he'd have fun with those arterial blood spray noises.
Yeah, he was smiling like the warden when he probably read that script the first time, knowing what he was going to be able to do. Absolutely. You gave him all the fodder possible for him to create a beautiful, landscape. I feel almost like if I were just to compare the audio production, it was almost as big as a story from season 1 that Arthur Unk did for us, Ice Station Bravo, just for the sheer amount of the characters, the gunfighting, but the spatial awareness that you have to even make this sound real. Yeah. It would probably be very easy, I think, for someone to screw it all up and just kind of not know where to place certain things. Jason is just so dialed into that spatial. I forgot what he called it. It's slipping my mind here, but the spatial audio, like a 3D type of audio. He just outdid himself on this one.
I've spoken about it before, but I still remember listening to that first Grey Rooms story, just the hair standing up on the back of my neck and realising, this is, There's actually something to this. There's actually a lot of talent and a lot of a lot of dedication that goes into it. There was a vision there from day one, and when you get to be a part of, it's rare to get to be a part of something like that. So it's just been fantastic to see it all come together, to hear other people's stories, to see the appreciation that's out there in the community that's built up around the podcast. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, Discord is huge right now for us in terms of just the massive community. And you've been a part of that. I mean, I've seen you speaking with the authors in one of the writing channels. A lot of the authors help each other out in terms of giving ideas and helping each other polish skills, and new authors helping new authors, and older authors helping newer authors, and newer authors giving ideas to older authors. It's a very inspiring to watch it all.
Yeah, it's a great thing to be a part of. Trying to foster that next sort of lineup of talent that's out there, and the people who are going to be submitting for season 5. It's really, really great to see it all come together.
Well, as we draw to a close here, tell me if you have any other, writings that you're working on, or any places that people can find you on the internet with anything that you've been working on recently.
I'm always working. I'm still shopping around a few sort of longer works, a novella and a novel. They've been my sort of focus for a few years now. So hopefully soon. I've had some positive feedback on the novella at least, and I'm hoping that soon it will be seeing the light of day. And the problem is that something has come out with the same title in the meantime, so I'm going to have to rethink that. But that's all right. These are the things that happen. And hopefully getting some submissions in for season 5 before the deadline. I've had a few sort of different ideas that I'm working on this time around. Trying to move away from the themes that I lean on, such as people exploding for no reason.
You tell a mean sci-fi story. I'm not trying to say, no, just give us sci-fi. Yeah, do anything you want. Do a romantic comedy horror, if so be it. But definitely, you know what you're doing when it comes to what you've already done. So
Thank you very much.
That's a plus.
Yeah, I think it was season 3. We got like a romance story. I should have prepared more. I should have gone through and gotten the title of the story. But I do remember, seeing it sort of branch out, and that was a bit of a light bulb moment for me, just thinking, this is, there's different things that you can do with horror.
Right, yeah. We've had several stories actually this season too, where authors are kind of exploring, it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, but for sure the relationship between people being the main focus of what goes wrong in the story. So I'm proud that we're branching out so much, because that first season we were just all over the place with, and it was still like the same stuff over and over again. Oh, this person's gonna die, and look how they got killed, and that was what we were into. And now we've got all kinds of themes and multiple ideas all in the same story.
I mean, you go into every story with the knowledge that this person is ultimately doomed. You need to be able to throw a few curveballs along the way, so to speak.
Exactly, to keep it interesting, and to even give false hope. I love that, when you're like, there's no way this character's going to die. They're going to win. They're going to overcome something. Nope, you still pull out the rug at the very end.
Yeah. I think The Road by Cormac McCarthy is probably the pinnacle for me of the story, where you are fully aware that, even though there's 100 more pages left in the book, there's that feeling that things could end at any time, that at any time this character could just die out of nowhere. And that
was a very emotional story.
more than the emotionality of the story, just that palpable sense of menace and loss, and just putting one foot in front of the other in the hope that you can outrun whatever it is that's on your heels.
Yeah, against all odds, and that's what makes the story richer. Is that they're not going to make it, but maybe.
Yeah.
I love it when an author can truly display that, because it's also, someone could easily just say that your story was just like, no, they were doomed from the first minute I heard, gunshots and firing. Like, of course they were all going to die. But, there was still this sense of like, how are they going to make it out? What's going to happen? You gave enough to keep us going. Like, we know someone will die, but the journey there is part of the entertaining factor of it all. It's what keeps you, addicted to listening still to it.
Yeah.
Well, hats off to you. This story was great.
Well, thank you very much, Brooks. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, it was great for you joining us tonight, Lachlan. I appreciate you taking the time to sit and chat, and I thank you for sharing your world with us here in the Grey Room.
Thanks so much, Brooks. Like I said, always a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. I definitely want to be talking to you again in season 5. Yeah. On BTD, on the Behind the Door, because you gave us yet another gem of a story.
Need to get my act together then.
Well, always let real life, take its course and handle what you need to. But we are so excited and proud to represent you as an author and turn anything you make into an audio drama. So thank you.
Thanks, man.
And as usual, the biggest thank you goes out to our fans and followers who listen daily and spread the good word of Bob. May you languish, may you lament, and may you loathe, but always with love. #stay gray. Take care and enjoy your evening, Lachlan.
You too, Brooks. See you next time.
Thank you. And good night, folks. Bye.
Join us each week after every episode for another edition of Behind the Door.